Welcome to another broadcast of Crime Beat with Ron Chepsick, the show that puts you, the listener, into the back alleys and boardrooms of the world's most fascinating subject, crime. Crime Beat brings you a lineup of dynamic and provocative guests who allow you to experience their lives and learn more about crime. Al Prophet, the noted crime documentarian, says, quote, Crime Beat is the best show of its kind for the thinking listener, both entertaining and educational. Let me introduce the host of Crime Beat, Ron Chepsick. He is a native of Thunder Bay, Canada, and an award-winning author, documentary producer, director, publisher, and screenwriter. Ron is a two-time scholar to Bangladesh and Indonesia and is a consultant to the History Channel's Gangland TV series. Ron is also a former instructor in the UCLA's Extension Journalism program. 3 of Ron's books have been optioned for movies, and the Discovery Channel has licensed Ron's documentary, The Frank Matthews Story. It's Ron's books, Ron's travels, and Ron's interviews that make him a leading expert on the fascinating world of crime. Now here he is, the guy with the big picture and his finger on the pulse of crime, Mr. Ron Chepsick.
Thank you, Scott, for that nice introduction. Good evening, world, wherever you are tonight. Well, it's September, and you know what that means, football and more football. And lawn mowing, that's almost finished for the year. It couldn't be greater. My favorite month probably of all 12 months. And September, I think September 1 should be New Year's, because I've always, throughout my life, felt renewed when September comes. And so this year is no exception. Well, tonight we have a very special guest. We have legendary criminal defense lawyer F. Lee Bailey. During his legal career, Mr. Bailey has represented such high-profile clients as Sam Sheppard, Patty Hearst, and Albert DeSalvo, so-called Boston Strangler. But perhaps he's become best known for the case California versus OJ Simpson. We are delighted to have Mr. Bailey on our show to talk about his remarkable career as a criminal defense lawyer and to hear what he has to say about the law and the American judicial system. We will be with Mr. Bailey shortly. First, let's take care of some business. Our acknowledgments to the people who are helping to make Crime Beat one of the most popular shows on the Internet. First, I'd like to thank all our listeners out there from around the world for tuning in to Crime Beat. We're thrilled and delighted to announce the overwhelming positive comments and thumbs up about our program. Some of our shows are now averaging between 150,000 and 200,000 listeners every week. From more than 160 countries around the globe, we'll listeners each our heart out. Our shows are free and downloadable. If you miss a live show, go to the Artistfirst.com website to listen to it. You can take our shows and post them on the web on any website. I'd like to thank all our sponsors, Strategic Media Books, for supporting our show. Thanks also to the production people at the Artistfirst Radio Network, and particularly Scott and Tony for making the show possible. And a special thanks to the Ryan Brothers for allowing to use our great music for our theme song. It's got the Beat the Crime written all over it. Now let's look at the mailbag for this week. We continue to get mail from all over the world. Some comments are long, so we edit them for length. This one is from Kirk of Spokane, Washington. Kirk writes, where do you find these true crime subjects for your show? Your show on the vampire serial killer was outstanding. We got several letters commending us for bringing on Alan R. Warren to discuss his book, Bloodthirst, the story of Wayne Bowden, vampire, rapist, and serial killer. This Wayne Bowden, he is one of Canada's most prominent serial killers, was a real piece of work. And if you want to hear the interview, go to the Artistfirst.com website, the Crime Beat section. We encourage you to email us with your comments, and you can do that by writing us at crimebeat123@yahoo.com. That's crimebeat123@yahoo.com. Tell us if you don't want to use your name, no problem. So what have we been up to? Just go to the strategicmediabooks.com website. You can check out our catalog of true crime books. We've got some really great books, and we continue to publish these books. Personally, it's been really exciting beginning to September. I'm doing screenplays for two movies, and I've been negotiating with a couple of people about doing some books with them. More on this later when I can release more information. We offer affordable advertising opportunities for sponsors and authors. We have several packages to meet your budget. Contact us at crimebeat123@yahoo.com. Now let's look at next week's show. The hits just keep coming. We have a schedule for September 14, 2017, Larry Lawton, who discusses book, Gangster Redemption. Larry is another gangster that spent a long time in prison, but has turned his life around, and he's got a really fascinating, inspiring story. and we look forward to sharing it with you, our listeners out there from around the world. Now let's look at the news for this week. We call this a rap sheet part of the program. Our rap sheet features a couple of items in news that caught our attention and you might have missed. This first item, you got to believe this story. Excuse me. A couple aboard a Southwest Airlines flight who engaged in a sexual act mid-flight was questioned by local authorities upon landing, but they will not face charges, according to reports. The airline told International Business Times that the incident occurred on a flight from Atlanta to Las Vegas and apologized to the other passengers aboard the flight. Wow, you imagine that, sitting on a plane and these two people are going at it sexually. The two individuals who are not identified in reports were reportedly told to refrain from sexual activity aboard the flight, but continued to engage in behavior. Shortly after the plane landed, around 8 a.m. On a Saturday morning, the couple were questioned by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police. The television station KVVU reported that neither a complaint was filed nor were there any arrests made. The episode will be forwarded to the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and the FBI, which handles crimes committed in the United States airspace. And this is what Lieutenant John Liberty, watch commander for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, said. Quote, nobody in the flight wanted to file charges. The flight crew left and did not even file a statement. So we have nothing to charge them with. They were identified and all information will be turned over to the FBI. Nobody wanted to file charges. Of course not. There was a really a show that they didn't expect going on. Michael Oram, a McCarran International Airport spokesman, told KSNAV before the plane landed that quote, reports are they were involved on the flight and were asked to stop, and they couldn't control themselves. Can you believe that story? Some people just don't have any shame. The second story is a little darker. An Arizona dad landed behind bars for allegedly stranding his 10-year-old daughter in the desert without shoes or water. Can you believe that? Christopher Charles Watson, 28, was charged with felony domestic child abuse after the girl was found alone, sobbing in 91-degree heat. Authorities said that Watson and his daughter got into a fight, so he decided to take her for a ride to calm her down. He admitted to officers that he forced her out of the truck and left her shoeless in the desert. Police said that a passerby contacted 911 after she saw her crying and walked barefoot on asphalt and took the girl home. According to Watson, he drove home and waited 15 minutes before returning, but could not find his daughter. The 10-year-old told police that her dad bit her, and she bit her head when hit her head when she sped away from the desert. She also reported having a headache and pain in her neck. She was brought to the medical center where she was treated and later released into the Department of Child Safety custody. Authorities said Watson was sleeping and reeked of alcohol when he was arrested. He was brought to the jail for booking, but is no longer in custody. Wow, I wonder why they didn't keep him in custody. I don't know if there's what the penalties are because the story didn't include them, but this guy should get some kind of punishment for this. Imagine leaving your daughter out in the desert. Well, that's it for the rap sheet this week. We'll be back with our special guest, F. Lee Bailey, in a second after this station identification break by Scott.
You are listening to Crime Beat, the #1 crime show on all of Wi-Fi radio. Now back to your host, Mr. Ron Shapson.
Thank you, Scott. Tonight we have a very special guest, legendary criminal defense lawyer F. Lee Bailey. During his legal career, Mr. Bailey has represented such high-profile clients as Sam Sheppard, Hattie Hearst, and Albert DeSalvo, the so-called Boston Strangler. But perhaps he has become best known for the case California versus OJ Simpson. In 1994, Mr. Bailey joined Robert Shapiro, Johnnie Cochran, Barry Scheck, and Robert Kardashian to form the core of the so-called Dream Team of lawyers, hired to defend football legend O.J. Simpson in his trial for the murders of his wife, Nicole Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. The trial of the century, as it would become known, began in January 1995 and was among the most publicized in history. It was followed by millions around the world. The jury found O.J. Simpson innocent, and he was set free. We are delighted to have Mr. Bailey on our show to talk about his remarkable career as a criminal defense lawyer and to hear what he has to say about the law and the American judicial system. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bailey.
Good afternoon.
Well, I'm telling you, there's so much to your life and career that's a little daunting to decide where to start, so we're going to start right at the beginning. Growing up in Massachusetts, what was life like for you during your formative years?
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts until I was 13, and then I went to a school in New Hampshire, and I came back and went to Harvard for a couple of years and got a lot of C's. So with the draft board breathing down my neck, I joined the Navy in flight training and became a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps.
Right. Watching you on TV over the years, you look like a tough guy. Were you a tough kid?
No, I wasn't. I was 2 years younger than everybody, 2 years smaller, couldn't play any sports, too short to be a first baseman, and I was left-handed. Could play hockey. I could skate fast, but, when I got hit.
Oh, I'm left-handed, too, so we got something in common.
Well, the smartest people in the world are left-handed.
Exactly.
I've read that.
And don't forget August 13th. That's Left-Handers Day, International Left-Handers Day. So.
Yeah, but do you know what the Latin word for left-handed is?
What?
Sinister.
Maybe that's why they burned us at the stake, right? When we were back in the Middle Ages, they used to burn us at the stake.
That's right.
Well, you didn't have your sights set on being a lawyer, did you?
No, the Marine Corps conscripted me because they ran out of lawyers and said, now you are one. I said, wait a minute, I haven't finished college. It's all right, you can read our manual courts-martial and you be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I said, haven't you got an opening in OBGYN? And they said, no.
Yeah, well, you've got a literary aspect to your soul because you wanted to become a writer, from what I understand, reading about you, and you did pretty well for yourself. You had over 20-some books as a writer, which is quite amazing.
I'm working on numbers 23 and 24 at the moment.
Oh, wow, on that then. Well, one of the books that I thought was really interesting was Secrets. It's got a really tantalating
I love that book.
And it's fiction.
They're going to make a movie out of it, believe it or not.
Oh, is that right? When is that going to happen?
Well, it's in negotiation now. I would think it might go together in the next year.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I've got a couple of movies, a couple of my books optioned. I know how hard it is to get done, you know.
It is. I'm writing 2 more books at the moment, one about OJ, one a biography. We've got the Canadian Broadcasting Company. I'm sure your listeners will be interested in this. They're doing a special on the Sam Sheppard murder case.
Oh, that's interesting.
NBC is doing a special on OJ, and CBS is doing a special on OJ, both to be broadcast the day before he's released. And we're doing a feature movie on OJ, so things are popping.
Wow, you're busy. You're
well, for a guy of 84, I don't like to sit around twiddling my thumbs.
Well, I don't think there'll be any chance of that happening. We were talking before the show, and I mentioned Gallery Magazine. You even had your hand in publishing as well. And Gallery Magazine was a men's magazine that started up, in the early 70s, right?
Yes, and I joined on the premise that it would be like the early editions of Playboy with a lot of literary and valuable written content, apart from all the symbols that graced its pages. It didn't turn out that way, so my association was short-lived.
Oh, wow, on that. You're a guy that's pretty comfortable in your own skin, right? I know in the Defense Never Rests, the book, you mentioned that you enjoyed being F. Lee Bailey.
I still do. It's good skin. It's aided greatly by experience in the Marine Corps, flying jets, flying all kinds of other airplanes, trying cases. If you don't believe in yourself, one place you don't want to be is in a courtroom. Exactly
on that. Now, your bio, there's so many different things that stand on your bio, but you just mentioned that you served as a jet fighter pilot. Can you still fly a plane?
I still fly airplanes. As a matter of fact, I'm having lunch with my FAA doctor to get my license updated because a client of mine just bought a jet and I can borrow it.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
That's the best way in the world to own an airplane. Take my word for it. I've owned 57 of them.
You own 57 airplanes. Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing on that.
And almost as many boats. Otherwise, I'd be a wealthy man.
Yeah, on that. Well,
but I wouldn't have had as much fun.
What intrigues me is, how can you go to law school without graduating from college? But I think the military service helps with that, didn't it?
No. I went to law school on waivers. I did not have a college degree.
Right.
I had the equivalent of 2.5 years, and I got a waiver from Boston University Law School based on military experience and a lot of in-court experience.
Wow, on that. So you did extremely well from what I read about you. After your amazing background, you were number one in your class.
Yes, valedictorian is the fancy word for it.
Yeah. On that. So that helped. Did that help you when you graduated from...
No, not one bit. Let me tell you something. Nobody cares less about your rank in the class, what your degree is, whether you have any postgraduate degrees like master's and PhD. If you can try a lawsuit, they don't care if you're wearing overalls.
So you still have to produce, right, once you get out into the real world?
It's a game of win and lose.
Right, on that. Well, what did you do when you came out? You came out, and did you have your mind set on criminal law?
No. As a matter of fact, I had my mind set on personal injury law because I was told, turns out to be correctly, that very few criminal lawyers make enough money to pay their rent. But I got plunged into a criminal case based largely on my experience in the military with the polygraph.
Right.
And that was a murder case, and that brought me into the Sam Sheppard case,
right,
which was of national import, and I was brought into that based on my expertise with the polygraph.
Why were you brought into that? You didn't really have any...
They wanted me to get a polygraph test for Sam Sheppard, make sure it was fair.
Mm-hmm. And so you were involved with the appeal, right?
No. He had lost 11 appeals. I applied for a polygraph test for Sam Sheppard.
Right.
Governor Mike DeSalvo said, if I allow that to happen, my career is over. A lieutenant of police in Cleveland said, I don't know why you're making a fuss. If Sam Sheppard is innocent, I don't want to know it. And I said, it's time Cleveland got to clean up.
Wow.
So I drained the swamp.
You drained the swamp, to use a familiar phrase. But here you are as a young guy, really not that much experience, and you go before the U.S. Supreme Court, which,
yes.
I've seen that on Law & Order. They argue that, and it's even chilling watching it then. But for you, how did you handle it, the pressure of going before the court?
There wasn't any pressure at all. Let me tell you something. Once you've landed on an aircraft carrier, there is nothing left to fear, particularly on a pitching deck. So I enjoyed the Supreme Court. I thought the experience was all that it was cracked up to be, and we got a good result, 8-1, won the case, and set a standard for trial fairness, which has yet to be diminished or reversed.
Right. You argue that Sam Sheppard didn't get a fair trial because of the excessive media coverage, right?
Well, it wasn't, no. That was considered by the court, but the reason they gave him the new trial was because the judge didn't do his job.
He didn't control the media in the court, right?
He didn't control the media. He didn't tell the jurors not to read the newspapers, which every day suggested that the jury vote guilty. It was an outrage.
Was that common in those days that they didn't give these instructions to the jury?
Oh, well, I don't think anybody ever did it, but if your listeners are interesting, the jerk who did it was named Louis B. Seltzer. He was the head of Scripps Howard. He wrote a book boasting about how he convicted Sam Sheppard with his newspaper called The Years Were Good. Nobody would publish it, so he paid to have it published.
Oh, wow. And that...
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting, and some of our listeners probably remember The Fugitive with David Jansen, but that played a little role in this, didn't it, or lack of a role?
Actually, it played a big role because when I impaneled a jury for the second trial in 1966, The Fugitive was a very popular show, and nobody asked. I didn't want to, and the prosecution apparently didn't dare, whether the jurors watched The Fugitive. So I knew a bunch of them probably didn't say a word about it, but I also knew that everybody knew The Fugitive was innocent.
Yeah, he was innocent, wasn't he?
Yeah, so if you watch The Fugitive, you got the right attitude for the Sheppard case.
Yeah. And we're not going to mention the prosecutor's name, who wasn't really on the ball, didn't ask.
The prosecutor's name, ironically, was John Corrigan, I can't say he wasn't on the ball, but he was naive. He told me, Lee, no jury has ever convicted an innocent man. I'd like to bring him out of his grave now and show him a bunch of cases that are front page. Ironically, the lawyer who defended Sam Sheppard, who was not a criminal lawyer and did not do a very good job back in 1954, was named Bill Corrigan, no relation.
Right on that.
So you get a lot of Corrigans in Ohio, right?
Right, exactly. Actually, our station is from Ohio, Alliance, Ohio. So
yes, I know.
Yeah, on that. Well, what's interesting, you have this really big case. You go before the Supreme Court. So you would think that that just people were just ringing your phone off the hook, wanting to get you. Was that what happened?
Well, yes, in part. When I got the Sheppard case as a 28-year-old lawyer, a lot of people took another look and began to check up. But then at the same time, I became embroiled in the biggest robbery in the history of the country in Plymouth, Mass, and the Boston Strangler case.
Right.
And they all got national headlines, and they all had my name in it. So then the phone rang off the hook, yeah.
Right, on that. Did you make much money off these cases? I mean...
How could
DeSalvo pay you or Sam Sheppard?
He couldn't. Sam Sheppard didn't, but his book publisher did.
Oh, okay.
Because we sold the movie rights,
right.
And Sam had assigned those to me. The Great Plymouth Mail Robbery, which was the unloading of $1,557,000 in green money,
right.
They were able to pay a fee.
Right, on that thing. DeSalvo evidently was found guilty of the assault, but he was never tried for the stranglings, right?
He couldn't be charged. I had immunity for him, and I wouldn't lift it until they waived the death penalty, and nobody had the courage to do that. And he died in prison. He was murdered for an in-prison offense. That is, selling speed below the market price after being warned by his competition not to do it anymore.
Right. So now your phone is ringing off the hook, right?
Well, it was back then. It's still a pretty active phone.
Yeah. Well, exactly on that. But, all your work is not... What do you do between these high-profile cases, which make national headlines and all that? What were you doing as a lawyer? It wasn't all...
Well, the very first case I ever tried as a lawyer was a first-degree capital case where the defendant had to stand trial in an iron cage in the middle of the courtroom.
Yeah.
Good old Massachusetts presumption of innocence, as we say.
Yeah.
And he was acquitted, and that's really what propelled me into the Sheppard case and all the others. And it was kind of like a snowball rolling down the hill for a while.
Right.
And then, of course, the hill began to get bumpy.
Exactly. Should it matter for a criminal defense lawyer for their client to be innocent? Is that a consideration?
Well, to an extent, and this is different. Most criminal lawyers don't share my views. In my view, a guy who is guilty deserves a fair trial to find out what he's guilty of. In my view, a guy who is innocent should be guaranteed an acquittal and, best case, not even be charged, which will ruin you. Best example in the world, OJ Simpson. Charged, acquitted, vilified by most of the white people in America, many of whom voted for guess who?
Donald J. Trump.
Oh, how did you guess?
On that, the next case, the really high-profile case, was Patty Hearst, and in some circles they portrayed as one of your defeats, but you actually got her off from death penalty prosecution, right?
Now, you've done your homework. We were brought in for only one purpose. There was no way to get her acquitted. She was in on 2 bank robberies. She was in on 20 police bombings and police car bombings. She was in on an incident in Los Angeles where she fired a machine gun into a crowd, and we got her off with a total of about 3 years served. In the murder case, we were able to eliminate. But the first-degree murder case, there was no defense. It was a terrible murder. bank robbery. A pregnant woman got shot, killed her and the fetus, and Patty was driving the getaway car, something I could not mention to you except she wrote about it in her book.
Exactly. You mentioned her book, which wasn't too kind to you. She sort of blamed you for a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I thought she was an ingrate because getting her out of the murder case saved her life.
I remember that. And that was, I thought that she should have got something, for what she did, but she got off. And then of course, Bill Clinton pardoned her in 2001. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
What's that?
I said Bill Clinton pardoned her in 2001.
Yeah,
Right thing to do?
Carter was going to pardon her, and he was warned that. Hold on, just a minute.
Yes.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
In any event, I thought that Carter did the right thing in commuting her sentence, and then Clinton and Carter was warned if he'd pardoned her, they were going to indict her for the murder in state court in Sacramento, where it occurred, and so he gave her a commutation. They lived with that, and later Clinton pardoned her, and it was the right thing to do. I still think, despite her criticism, that Patty Hearst should not have been charged. She was truly a victim of brainwashing, as much as any of the military fellows that we forgave for their transgressions, because we recognized brainwashing was just difficult to stand up to.
Exactly. There should be some sympathy there. But looking at our judicial system, are there a lot of innocent people in jail? It seems that way. It seems like every week somebody's getting out of jail after 45 years, and they're usually
I just involved myself in a case where a young man who was tried as an adult but was in fact a juvenile for a murder he had nothing to do with, served 27 years before a very good lawyer took his case and got the only witness against him, a 13-year-old prostitute who had no home, bullied by the cops. She says, in making up a story, she came forward, took the witness stand, and said, I wasn't there, and I have no idea whether he was there, but I never saw any of the things I testified to at his trial. And the judge let him out immediately, and that's going to be a whopper case. So the answer to your original question is, there are not many innocent people in jail, but there are far more than should be there. We have the means now to be much more discriminating about who did what to whom. And there is so much resistance, as there was in the Sheppard case, to letting him out of jail. It's like taking a chip out of the Great Seal of the state of Ohio. That people fought us at every turn. It had nothing to do with whether they really thought that he did it. So that cancer is out there. It needs a cure.
Well, given what you just said, what's your feeling on the death penalty? Is there a place for that, or?
I think the death penalty is the kind of thing I would like to inflict on anybody who shoots me. But I also think that our system is nowhere good enough, in most cases, to bet someone's life on, because if you make a mistake, as we have so many times, you can't dig them up and give them back their citizenship. So I also think that the problem with the death penalty is when someone turns out to be a vicious killer or a serial killer like the Boston Strangler, we should learn what we can from them. Examine them for as long as they live to try to find out how to identify them when they're in their teens, before they start killing people, but after they are kind of in a mode to do that, and pull them off the street as civil commitments to a mental institution.
On that, we're going to take a break and talk about other aspects of your career. But what's your feelings about all these police shootings that have been going on, and the police getting off, and most of the victims being black?
Well, I mean, that's very bad, but I'm going to tell you, over this past weekend, the police were getting shot by blacks
there were
more than the other way around. So
that's right.
The thing that I lament is that this country should have learned more and better than it has. We've become increasingly divisive, People are learning to hate each other at a new level, and I think that's tragic. We have got to somewhere find a leader that really can bring people together instead of polarizing them,
right.
And we haven't done that yet.
Right. Do you see anybody on the horizon that could fit that model?
Well, I think Colin Powell would have been a great president. His wife wisely did not want to put up with the nonsense that is part of being the president, and so he never ran. We've had some other good people, but I think the short answer is that being the president turns out to be a thankless job. Good people don't want it, so they don't run. And the choice of candidates is not very appealing.
Exactly. And they have to run as soon as they win. I mean, it's 4 years. What's your idea? Maybe a 6-year term, 1 6-year term, where they have...
I don't think that cures a lot. It gives the president more time if he's a bad one,
right,
to cause damage, and less time if he's a good one, to accomplish anything good. But England has 5 years. They can call for a re-election anywhere along the way.
Exactly.
Their system probably works better than ours. The best-run countries in the world, in my experience, from the ones I've visited, are New Zealand and Finland. And if we could learn something from them, we might do a better job than we're now doing.
Exactly. But of course, everybody thinks that what we do is always the best in the world, right? That's one of our problems.
I don't think people think that anymore.
You don't think?
I think that Americans are beginning to get the idea. Yeah, we don't have it. We don't have it knocked, and our country's not doing all that well. I think the most significant indication of that is that the corporate leaders who once signed on to try to help out the administration and bring some wisdom to it are jumping the ship because they've got a guy who's unpredictable, and it's sullying their names to be on one of its council.
Wow.
So they just said, I'm leaving.
Exactly.
And some of the senators are saying the same thing. If John Glenn was still alive, I think he'd be having nightmares at this point.
Exactly, on that. Well, we're going to take a short break and continue this amazing interview with F. Lee Bailey. Scott, let's take a break, and we'll come back. Hi, I'm Ron Chepsick, the host of Crime Beat Radio, and I'd like to tell you about another exciting and timely book from Strategic Media Books that is shaking up the publishing world. Rob J. Anderson's Tarnished Heels, How Unethical Action and Deliberate Deceit at the University of North Carolina Ended the Carolina Way, is an explosive investigation of the athletics program at the University of North Carolina. The book seriously questions the University of North Carolina's sterling reputation, both athletically and academically, and chronicles numerous events that have negatively affected the University of North Carolina. Players, coaches, faculty, and university leaders all played roles in the scandal, and in many cases appear complicit. The uncovered issues are staggering: cash payments, academic misconduct, fraudulent classes, grade tampering, corruption in the coaching ranks, and much more. Along the way, doubts were also raised as to the effectiveness of the NCAA to properly and fairly handle the multiple situations. Tarnished Heel shows that the University of North Carolina remains in moral limbo and still not willing to truly examine the depth of the issues that have negatively affected its campus academics and revenue sports teams. For more information about Rob J. Anderson's Tarnished Heels and other titles, please go to www.strategicmediabooks. That's www.strategicmediabooks.com. Thank you.
You are listening to Crime Beat on the Artistfirst Radio Network. Send your questions and comments to crimebeat123@yahoo.com. Now back to your host, Mr. Ron Chepsick.
Thank you, Scott. We're here with remarkable, legendary lawyer F. Lee Bailey, criminal defense lawyer who's been involved with some of the biggest cases in American history, and we're having an interesting discussion about his career and the law on that. But before we continue, Mr. Bailey, you've got a consulting business now. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I do trial consulting, which is principally involved in helping lawyers get their cases ready for trial and taking over the investigative part of the case, because the facts are more important these days than the law. The law is pretty well known.
Exactly. On that day. And the website is F. Lee Bailey. F-L-E.
No.
Oh, no, excuse me. That's BradleyandElliott.com.
BaileyandElliott.com. There's no F. Lee Bailey website.
Yeah, well, there's one actually on the internet, but the one we're talking about is BaileyandElliott.com. To go there. Are you active on social media? Can people connect with you?
No. I have email, and that's it. And my email's on the website.
And that's it. Well, getting back to our discussion, the big case, of course, that brought you into recent prominence was the OJ Simpson case. And how did you get involved with that?
I got a call from Bob Shapiro saying I'm trying to give OJ a lie detector test, and it's not working out. What should I do next? And I said, stop the test. You can't test this guy on a homicide where somebody cares for is involved for at least 2 weeks after it's over. And then Bob Shapiro said, well, I'd like you to come in and take over the preparation of the case and also cross-examine this cop.
Right. Well, you had so many superstars on that case. They were
Wrong. They really didn't. It was not a dream team. It was much closer to a nightmare. I didn't call it a dream team. The news media did. But the news media, very frankly, didn't know what they were doing in most of the case. Most of them didn't have any experience, with one exception who did a great job. Right. And there was nothing dream team about it. It was kind of cobbled together in stages.
Right.
There were some very good lawyers on there. Johnny Cochran certainly would be one. And there were also some people who were kind of hanging on for their own reasons.
Right.
And it was a case that was worth about 5 weeks of trial maximum, and it dragged on for 9 months.
Right. Did you believe O.J. was innocent from the beginning?
I was absolutely sure, but I wouldn't have stayed out there without a fee for 9 months.
Right. Well, what made you think he was innocent? Because, most of the country, white people anyways, thought that he was.
Well, I thought he was innocent for 3 reasons, all of which are laid out on the website. You mentioned Bailey and Elliott.
Right.
First, he had no reason in the world to want to hurt the mother of his young children. Number 2, the statement he gave to the police, a guilty man could never have gotten by with. These were 2 old, wizened cops.
Right.
From LAPD upper echelon.
Right.
Number 3, his demeanor on the way to Chicago after the murder occurred, and on the way back after he discovered that Nicole had been murdered, was completely consistent with innocence and never with guilt, and the state kept us from presenting that statement to the police, as we tried to do many times. But most important, there was a timeline, and a timeline is a piecemeal alibi, like a jigsaw puzzle. When it fits together, it means the defendant never had the opportunity to commit the crime, probably wasn't even there, and that's what made the jury come back with a verdict in less than 2 hours of deliberation.
Did the other lawyers on the team have as strong opinions about his innocence as you?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Did the other lawyers on your team have a strong opinion about his innocence as you did? Did they all believe him?
No, I don't think anybody did, but I was quite a bit senior to all of the other members of the team. Johnny Cochran had some good experience in murder cases.
Yeah.
Bob Shapiro had none. And I think that, there's one other lawyer I'm pretty sure was always convinced he was innocent, a very bright guy, and should have participated more. His name was Bob Blazier from Sacramento.
Right.
He pretty much just sat there, but he was kind of the brains of the outfit for the many days that I was not in court, and he helped out considerably in the planning and execution and getting lawyers ready to do what they were next to do. So apart from the two of us, I think there was a lot of in between. Johnnie Cochran certainly hoped he was innocent, but if you look at the picture at the moment of acquittal, you could see that he was extremely appreciative to hear the jury say it.
Exactly.
Which means he was having some doubts.
Right.
My picture shows I knew what was in the envelope, and OJ's picture shows he knew, but he was damn glad to hear it published.
Did you get enough credit for your role in the trial? I mean, you did really break down Mark Fuhrman, and you know.
I did. I lost over $500,000 trying that case because Shapiro took a fee for the two of us, but never gave me any.
Wow, on that.
Yep.
But you know, Johnnie Cochran, he had the famous phrase, you know, about the glove and all that. But you're the guy that.
Well, I've got to tell you, Johnnie Cochran's use of the phrase, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit, did not make a hit for the jury. His wearing of the hat did not make a hit. And I emphasize I love Johnnie Cochran.
Right.
He was a good lawyer and a great man. And there's a firm in his name out there that still has a bunch of great people with it. On the other hand, the cross-examination of Mark Fuhrman probably wasn't as important as some people thought, because the jurors told me, at least the black ones, we knew he was a liar the minute he opened his mouth. So they had a lot of experience with racist cops in Los Angeles.
Right. That's what's interesting is you have a interesting theory which was presented at trial. Faye Resnick, right? And Nicole Brown's.
Faye Resnick was really the intended victim. Nicole got killed by mistake. The killers thought she was Faye Resnick.
Wow. And what makes you so certain that was the case?
Well, it's all on the website. Number one, nobody had any reason to give Nicole Brown a Columbia necklace, which is what killed her. Number two, Faye Resnick owed, I'm told, substantial money to cocaine purveyors who normally don't sue you if you don't pay them. Their remedies are more drastic, and that's what happened here. Ron Goldman, of course, is just the classic guy, wrong time, wrong place.
Right, on that. But OJ did go to jail in the subsequent case in 2008. You talked to him during that period, right? And gave him some advice.
No, I haven't talked to him since the.
But I mean, before he was convicted.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
All the time. I used to visit with him, have lunch with him.
Right. And did you tell him to get rid of his lawyer?
I'm sorry?
Did you tell him to get rid of his lawyer, that he wasn't doing a good enough job for him?
Yes. I said he was totally incompetent and offered to get him a new lawyer.
Right.
OJ eventually filed papers saying, yes, my lawyer was incompetent. It was far too late.
Right. Now, the OJ said that he was told to stay away from you, right?
No, I don't think he ever said that.
Uh-huh.
I believe that he was given the impression that if he continued to talk to me and an AP reporter who was the senior one there and by far the best in the trial, named Linda Deutsch,
right,
that it would not go well for him at parole time. And when you are a prisoner of the state,
right,
they can tell you almost anything they want and get away with it. They certainly did here. And I would not want to jeopardize his chances of actually realizing the parole which has been granted to him by talking to him and then publishing something about his comments. Indeed, when he gets out, he's probably going to be told, keep it quiet or we could take you back any time. And that's true.
Right. The 33-year sentence he got was outrageous, right? It was really payback.
Well, it was worse than that. I mean, let's face it, for the only time in the history of the United States, 6 of 12 jurors admitted in their written questionnaires They thought he was guilty of murder, but said they'd give him a fair trial for robbing in a hotel room to get his own property back. And he's the only guy of the whole bunch that ever went to jail. Now, if that doesn't smell, then I don't know where the outhouse is.
Right. What did you think of the parole hearing with OJ? I thought he talked too much, and I thought for sure that he was going to hang himself.
Well, I know some people got that impression, but the overall impression was, my Lord, this guy wouldn't kill anybody, but if he did kill somebody, he would talk them to death. So you're right in that analysis. OJ is an affable, amiable, and garrulous person.
Right.
And he does go on at length.
Right.
But the long shot and upshot of the OJ parole hearing was that, by and large, the public is now saying, wait a minute, maybe this guy didn't kill anybody. He certainly doesn't sound like it. I think he made a lot of new friends among the millennials. The people of my generation, their minds are closed. The one behind me, I don't have much hope for them. But the one coming after that is probably going to vilify America for the treatment it's given OJ for being acquitted. It's the worst that's happened in this country since Lizzie Borden was convicted in the 1890s.
Wow.
I mean, when she was acquitted, but always treated like she'd been convicted.
Right. When he gets out this fall, not too long from now, are you going to talk to him, or are you going to...
OJ?
Yeah.
I'm going to find out what he's been told, not from him, about who he can talk to and so forth, and if he's better off not having contact with me, especially with all the things that are going on now, 2 major TV shows, a movie, and probably a book. I'll wait until he is no longer at the end of the string, and then I'm sure we'll get together.
Well, everybody seems to do well after that trial. I mean, Furman, he went on Fox, and OJ Simpson's probably going to be rich in a little while. But your career didn't really go well, right, after the trial?
It is amazing, but I thought when we walked OJ out, and I perhaps unwisely said I told you so to a lot of reporters and other people who had it wrong, called it wrong, and to this day say the jury was wrong. I was right based on what I read in the newspapers.
Exactly.
I found people turning against me. Lawyers, classmates from law school, judges. A judge who put me in jail never would have done it, but he was a redneck from Georgia, an ignorant man who had a federal bench office, and he was so angry that I had gotten the N-word guy off, that he just turned terribly hostile. I'm very much ashamed of people of good intelligence who did that and who said, well, I read the papers, you can't tell me.
Wow.
He was innocent. Where does that all come from?
Exactly. It's a comment on the state of our nation, isn't it? On that. But if you were to, would you defend Bill Cosby? Because I thought about you and Bill Cosby when Bill Cosby...
I would in a heartbeat. There's an awful lot about the Cosby trial that bothers me. I only met Bill personally once.
Right.
Had a drink with him at the St. Moritz Hotel in New York.
Right.
I thought he was a very nice guy. The number of important human beings who've gotten in trouble over some kind of sexual activity is legion, from President of the United States to Roger Ailes, my old buddy from Fox, and a whole bunch of people. So it's unfortunate, but this case, I think, is an outrage. Here's a woman who took a civil settlement, promised as part of it, and this is very common, not to go public, and an ambitious district attorney decided to go back 10 years or more and punish Bill for what he said was consensual and she said was not, but she said, I'll take the cash.
Wow.
And I thought the case was very badly positioned, And I don't know how many times they're going to try Bill again, but they'll never get a jury to convict him if his lawyer is good enough to get a reasonably impartial jury.
Well, we're finishing up our interview here, and at least it's been a really great experience. But you no longer have your law license, but you did try to get it back, and you did amazing. You passed the bar exam, right?
No, I didn't try to get it back. I did not try to get it back. Florida disbarred me and said I could apply to get it back in 5 years. I have no desire to be a lawyer in Florida.
Right.
Massachusetts, right, which disbarred me reciprocally, would probably follow suit. And I did apply to Maine because I live here and some friends encouraged me to, and lost by 1 vote. And I said, I'm going to go to my grave as controversial as OJ, and I don't think it's any longer important to be a member of the club.
Right. Well, you got so many things going on. It's breathtaking. But finishing up the interview, I noticed that you said when asked what you wish people would ask you during interview, you answer something like, what do you want to see on your gravestone? That's my final question. What do you want to see on your gravestone?
There's a smart-ass answer to that, and that is 1,000 women cried themselves to sleep. But I think a more sober suggestion would be he did his very best. That's all anyone can do.
Only 1,000 women?
Only 1,000. Well, let's stop counting then, of course.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Okay.
Wish you good luck.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Crime Beat listeners, I hope you enjoyed our show and learned as much as I did. Mr. Bailey is such a contrarian in his thinking. What did you think, Scott, about our show tonight? Exciting, wasn't it?
It was, and I was surprised. Well, maybe not surprised is the right word, but when Mr. Bailey said that he was convinced O.J. was innocent, that Faye Resnick, if she had a big coke problem and owed the Colombians a bunch of money, in fact, he used the expression. Remember, listeners, she almost had her head cut off. That's not a pissed off husband. That's a drug hit. And in fact, he called it the Colombian necklace. That's what they do to people who owe drug dealers money in Colombia. They cut you from ear to ear.
Exactly. It was so violent and so vicious that you wonder if how could individual like we've watched all these years, right? OJ Simpson do that. It just didn't seem possible. But who knows? He had a dark side to him, and he was a tough guy, and he had a temper. So who knows what happened on that? But he got off. The jury voted on him, and I guess we got to accept that, right?
Yeah, you hate to think an innocent man went to prison, but it happens all the time in the U.S.
Right, and then of course there was some would say poetic justice when he was convicted. In 2008, and went sent to prison for ostensibly 33 years, although he's getting out now.
Well, and why would you write a book entitled "If I Did It"? Are you kidding me?
I know. There's a lot of bizarre things related to this case. We'll leave it for another show, Scott. Well, we hope you enjoyed Crime Beat this evening on the Artistfirst World Radio Network. Wherever you are tonight, we'd like to thank all of you out there for listening to our broadcast this evening. In the meantime, you're welcome your emails and thoughts about our program. You can email us at crimebeat123@yahoo.com, and please spread the word about our show. And until next week, we hope you tune in to Crime Beat next Thursday, same time at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you'll want to have a front row seat to the fascinating world of crime. And if you're thinking of doing my lawn, don't have to do it. It's September. Sleep tight, everybody.